Today I watched Studio Ghibli's first film, Castle in the Sky, and yeah, I have some thoughts I want to share about this one. So, obligatory spoiler warning for the entirety of Castle in the Sky, but yeah, let's just jump right into it. So, this was sort of a strange one because I almost feel like I shouldn't have liked this movie, but I ended up enjoying it a lot. While watching it, I had this recurring soundbite going off in my head that was basically like, I'm not sure if this is a good movie, but I'm definitely enjoying it. However, now that I've spent some time sort of processing the movie, I don't think that's an accurate sentiment because, this is a genuinely good film. It has a ton of artistry to it, and it has a tight, clean story, which I'll get into more in a bit. So I think it's more like there was a decent amount of content in this that I normally wouldn't like in a movie, so I feel like usually I'd be slightly colder in my reception to this one, but since it had that Ghibli charm to it, I just found it really cozy, and it's definitely a movie I would watch again. Now, where to start with the actual review? I guess let's start with some of the negatives so then I can sort of finish with some of the positives. So, for starters, it's kind of weird how random the opening of this film is. I feel like a lot of Ghibli films sort of just start. For example, we previously discussed Kiki's Delivery Service on this channel, and that one is just like boom, it introduces you to Kiki, it says she's a witch, and then it sends her off on her adventure without any real exposition beyond that. There's no moment where Kiki discovers she's a witch and has magical powers. There's no explanation of if witches are normal in this world or anything like that. And I'm not saying it needs that. I'm just saying that's a stylistic aspect of this. With Castle in the Sky, however, it starts off similarly in that it just sort of begins, but since it involves multiple factions colliding, some of the action feels really bizarre. Like, for example, it starts with Sheeta on an airship, and it seems like she belongs on the airship with the crew. Like, it doesn't seem like she doesn't fit in there. But when the pirates attack the ship, Sheeta also attacks the crew and tries to escape from them, but then also tries to escape from the pirates. So it's a moment where you're like, okay, she's with the crew. Oh no, are the pirates trying to rescue her? No, the pirates are also bad. And, you know, all of this sort of context is revealed later, but it's sort of a rough start. Now, before this is sort of taken out of context, I do want to say that I don't mind mysterious openings or openings that sort of challenge you and leave you with a ton of questions. I actually usually sort of prefer that. I just feel like this one felt a bit weird because I felt really disconnected from all of the characters. I didn't know who are the good guys or the bad guys, or just sort of through our POV of Sheeta, I just didn't understand her at all. So it made me feel a bit more disconnected, while usually it's better done when you're connected to the character and then you're get a ton of questions and a ton of mystery. But anyway, let's jump to the next point. I think my biggest gripe with the entire movie as a whole is that I felt like the first act was really weak. The second half of the movie, pretty much after Sheeta discovers her powers and they join the pirate fleet, is really, really good. And that's where I fell in love with the movie. But before that, the entire sequence where Sheeta is kind of just running away from the pirates and the military in the mining town, it just didn't grab me in the way that Ghibli movies usually do. I also felt like there was some awkwardly paced humor during the first act that isn't really in the movie for the second half. So, for example, there's a scene where a pirate and one of the town folks person are like fist fighting each other, and it's done for comedic relief, but the animation of the punches is so like slow and the punches don't carry any weight, so it feels really awkward and drawn out. My other main gripe has less to do with Castle in the Sky and more with Studio Ghibli as a whole or in general. So I don't understand why they constantly copy character designs from one project to another. Like, Studio Ghibli is so creative with all of their environmental design and the airship designs and the world building, etc. And these movies have so much magic and charm and life to them. So it really strikes me as weird that they seem to just always use the exact same character designs. And I don't mean like the same art style, because their anatomy and art style is always the same, but I don't mind that at all. That's sort of their identity and personality. What I mean is that, like, Sheeta's character design, especially in the beginning of the movie, is almost identical to Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service, and they have, like, the exact same outfit on. Dola is almost identical to Sophie's old design in Howl's Moving Castle, and Motro in this looks identical to Kamaji in Spirited Away. It's all the weirder that Castle in the Sky is their first animated film because it basically means that they based all of their designs off of this one, intentionally or not. Like, so many of their movies' character designs never really progressed past their first work, and they had already had all of these ideas in their first film. I get that it's kind of blasphemous to criticize Studio Ghibli, but this has always really bugged me. And also, while I'm already digging myself into a deeper hole, the music in this one felt way too similar to other Ghibli soundtracks. And I swear there's like at least three of these movies all have the exact same like melody or motif, and I don't see anyone ever really talk about that. But anyway, moving on from that, one of the key moments of I normally would hate this, but I'm enjoying this movie is basically Dola as a character. I found her character design to be really ugly, and she kind of just annoyed me in the first half of the movie at least. There's a scene that takes place in Dola's room, and in it, there's a portrait of her when she was younger, and she still had the vibrant pink hair. And I thought that was a really cool detail. And as a result, I found myself sort of wishing that her character was still the age of Sheeta and Pazu at the time of the story. I feel like that would still feel very Ghibli esque, where, you have these two kids on an adventure and they go into this sort of fantastical world on the hero's journey, and then they meet someone who is the same age as them, but they're like this commander of an entire pirate fleet. Um, I just feel like that would work. And either that or sort of like the 20s to 30-year old character that's in The Boy and the Heron, who's sort of like a pirate in a way. Uh, I kind of just wish Dolo was more like that, since I kind of feel like a lot of the older women in Ghibli movies are usually really either annoying or antagonistic. So through association, I kind of get annoyed with them. And I still liked Dola though, and that's why I'm sort of saying this is one of those where normally I would hate it more, but I liked it in the movie. By the end, I thought that she was sweet with her connection to Sheeta and everything. Although I will say, I did find some of the humor around the other pirates all falling in love with Sheeta to be a little creepy. I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt since it's an older movie, but that did not age well. Another part that has an aspect that I normally wouldn't like in fiction was sort of the robots. When I originally found out that the castle in the sky was occupied by robots, I felt kind of disappointed because it sort of ruined some of the magic and mystique for me. In terms of world building, I'm not a big fan of the concept of like the modern day is actually less technologically advanced than the past. It just doesn't ever capture me. So, that being said, though, when Cheetah and Pazu arrive on the floating castle, my opinion did a total 180 because I actually really liked the weird mix of nature and the robots. It felt very 80s coded, but it was charming and really well done. And since I'm bringing this part up, there was a cool shot when it showed the robots sitting around the base of the tree and they were sort of being absorbed by the tree. And that reminded me so much of the way that the Erd tree is depicted, sort of absorbing the dead in Elden Ring. And I wonder if Elden Ring was partially inspired by this movie, at least in that specific piece of world building. Also, I know I mentioned the soundtrack of this one sounded too similar to the other soundtracks, but I do still have to praise it since this was sort of the original one, and it was really beautiful and full of atmosphere. And some tracks had this really interesting, haunting aspect that really sort of built up the aura and vibe of Laputa as being this mysterious, kind of otherworldly place. But yeah, I think that's more or less all I really had to say about this one. This might sound like an insult, but I really feel like this is the perfect movie to fall asleep to. It's really cozy and has that older audio quality to it that kind of just lulls you to sleep. And it also helps that this movie doesn't really have any major tragedy in it, in that, like, the good guys all get out alive, etc. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this movie? Where would you rank it in comparison to other Ghibli films? And also, do you agree with me on the whole, like, copying character designs and that the soundtrack sounds similar. I really want to hear some feedback on that point specifically. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel because it helps a lot. But yeah, with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here. So take care, and I will see you in the next one.